but it's their ambition, the drive, the tenacity, the diligence. There's nothing that substitutes hard work. GBV, it's a new pandemic. You know, Ms. Lishera, mentoring must choose you. It's not like a talent scout.
Welcome to What Matters Most with George Mahlakgane. Our next guest is celebrated in the African continent as one of top 100 female legal practitioners by Male Courtroom 100. She's a criminal law litigator in Superior Court. She is a mother, she is a wife, and she thrives on mentorship. Help me welcome Advocate Lerato Mohlaka. Advocate Lerato Mohlaka, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm just going to play a quick game with you. Ne? You can just answer the first one that comes to mind.
Okay.
Early mornings or late nights?
Definitely late nights.
Heels in court or sneakers after hours?
Heels in court.
Judge Judy or suits?
Judge Judy, definitely.
Emails or voice notes?
Voice notes all the time.
Definitely. I hear you. You always say, leave a voice note for me if I can't.
Please leave a voice note. Okay. It's far much practical.
Yeah. You started your journey in a small village, and now you are one of Africa's top 100 female lawyers. What has kept you going all these years?
Ambition. Ambition, ambition, ambition. I do come from a small village, dusty gravel roads. So to dream far beyond, the geographical position of that village, to see what else is out there. I was quite lucky because my mother took us from Bochum and placed us here around Polokwane. When I arrived here, obviously there was just a lot of ahas, the light bulbs, what is this big city in my mind because of where I was coming from.
Yeah.
So as soon as I started my schooling here, which was in 1992, I started to dream bigger. My scope was broadened. And when you start watching television, when you start thinking, if they can do it, what would it mean for another little girl like me at the time if I were to achieve more? So the ambition. I was always very ambitious.
And you have mentored many women. Some of them have become very important members of the judiciary. Why is mentoring so important to you? And what do you look for? Like if you're mentoring someone, what do you look at in order to say, this is someone I could mentor?
Ms. Lishera, mentoring must choose you. It's not like a talent scout, if you know what I mean. Someone would just come up to you and ask you to mentor them. So it's not so much that what you look for, but it is important. It's important for continuity.
Yeah.
If I was privileged, I was highly privileged. One of my mentors, my female mentors, is the now Deputy Judge President, I beg your pardon, Justice Semenya, MV. I was, ambition and a lot of passion. When they clash sometimes, they can create some unwanted character. So I was lucky because she was able to reel me in. She imparted knowledge that was far beyond the scope of education, court work. I learned a lot of emotional intelligence. I learned how to control my passion, because then you come across, if you're too passionate, as aggressive. So because I was exposed to that type of mentorship, I realized I would possibly not be the litigant that I am if she didn't take the time, if she didn't invest the time. And she's not the only one, but she's been the most influential in my life. So I value that a lot. I find it to be one of the most critical role you can ever play in someone's life who is younger, following in your path, because one, most importantly, is that the lessons that you have accumulated over your experience, especially the falls, because it's easy to celebrate the wins, but the falls, making sure that those that come after you are able to learn from them so that they don't fall in the same pits.
And have you ever had a situation whereby someone comes to you to ask you to mentor them and then you were like, no?
No, that has not happened. I pray to God that never happens, because then I wouldn't want to fail anyone. It is always an endeavor of mine to make sure that everyone that I come across and we meet, our paths must be profitable. They must walk away from me, at least, having taken something that would go a great mile in assisting them in whatever it is. I mean, if it's personal, especially when it's work related. I would not want to meet them later and find that I imparted the wrong things, or they took the wrong things from me.
And you've worked on many cases, actually. What is the one case that has stuck with you to this day?
Sure. Oh, Miss Lishera, there's many of those. But the recent one that was reported by the National Prosecuting Authority in Parliament, it involved 2 minor children. It's in the public domain. But much as I can't go into details about it, but it mainly involved a father who was selling his 2 minor children to his friends, neighbors, in a sexual manner. It started when they were 7 and 11. And when we finally went on trial, there were 11 and 13, I beg your pardon. So they are 2 years apart. So it has been the most difficult. That was the most difficult trial that I've ever did. It was emotionally taxing. It needed the greatest care to handle those minor victims and to make sure that justice is served. And that was difficult. It took us close to a year to finalize just the trial, never mind the investigations. But I'm happy because we were able to give them justice.
And I mean, like, if you are dealing with such cases, when you get home, do you sometimes find yourself taking work back home? Like, in terms of, does it sometimes affect your parenting style, or does it sometimes affect how you do things at home?
Well, of course. The nature of my job does not allow you the luxury to separate your work life and your home life, because, I mean, crime is crime. It affects us in our personal lives. So I'm a mother to a son and a daughter. So anything that happens to human beings. So if I get home and whatever case that I would have dealt with, the facts of that case, when I get home, the first thing that I think about is, I mean, if this had to happen to my children, if it had to happen to my husband, if it had to happen to my relatives, my immediate community. So that makes you always alert, and you must treat the victims of crime with the greatest caution and care and empathy. So if it's not you in that position, and if you are reckless in how you deal with them, someone else out there needs you in your best element. And if you don't afford them that opportunity, suppose, God forbid, it happens to your family, your children, wouldn't you want the prosecutor in charge, the advocate who's handling them, to offer them the same diligence, the patience, the hard work, the due diligence? So obviously, it's a great deal. I do take it home because, I mean, you wake up at night, in the middle of the night, you want to grab water, and you're like, I don't think I investigated that issue. So you quickly take your pad, and you're like, when I get to work tomorrow, I must call Forensic Science Laboratory. I must tell them to investigate this further than this. They must check samples. They must, you have trial playing back. After you appear in court and you're like at home, there'll always be that moment where you're like, did I really canvass that issue satisfactorily? Did I go, or did I? So you always take it home. But you must learn to separate them, because otherwise you won't. Yeah, but then the parenting is strict.
Yeah,
Because
I was about to ask that.
the children must, it's a civil duty. It's
You
a bodily.
protect them more.
Yeah, protection, yes, but also they must. It's the strict parenting, because you don't want to find yourself in the nearest future having your children in the work line, and not, obviously you don't want them as victims, but you also do not want, we know the society that we live in. We see teenagers, we see what happens and how what ill discipline has caused. So you do not want that. So I always go back home and I tell my son, this is what I did in court, these were the facts, and then we sit down and we talk about it, how to avoid him being in that position, as an accused, as a juvenile offender.
Yeah, I love that. And you work actually closely with repeat offenders, like repeat criminals, abusers, rapists, killers. What is the pattern that you have noticed in them? What do you think actually, like, these people, someone keeps doing the same thing over and over again?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to answer as an expert. I did not study criminology, or neither am I a psychologist. But the need for control. I come from a Christian background. I think the devil is just at play, because you cannot believe some of the facts that we deal with. I mean, in a recent, I think we saw that on the internet, where a 25-year-old was hacking his mother to death. That's a real life incident. And when it comes to us, it's a crime. But do you understand that that cannot be normal? Is it drugs? What is it? But essentially, it's just the devil's plot. That's my own personal belief. But also control. It's an element of evilness that is now rearing its head more uglier with each reported case that we have. In the past, rape was there, but not as it is now. Murder was there, but it was not as brutal.
As you are watching there at home, please do not forget to subscribe, like and comment on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click that notification bell down below to get notified whenever we post a new video. And do not forget to follow our social media platforms as well. Advocate, South Africa has had like many big court cases lately, especially around GBV. GBV, political corruption and police violence. Which of these issues do you think is the biggest challenge for our justice system?
Ooh, we cannot equate them. We cannot say one is above the other. They are all social ills. I mean, GBV, it's a new pandemic. It's getting worse by the day. But, corruption is the moral decay that has caused so much unemployment. Now we know that, people go as far as killing for these tenders.
Yeah.
You see, so they overlap into each other, but all of them on the same footing are a huge, huge thorn in our daily dealings.
Yeah. And on our Women's Day podcast, I hope for those that have watched it, on our Women's Day podcast, you have mentioned actually the impact of false rape accusations. How do you think these affect the real victims? Those people that actually are being raped, but then they go to try and open a case, they get there and the case is not seen as far as important, just because there's other people that actually use rape for their own motives, basically.
I mean, it's a worst travesty. If we were to perhaps put it in simple terms, let's say you or any other person that you know is a victim, a true victim of sexual violation. If you both go and report, and I'm not, and we both go to report at a police station, we know that our resources in the police service are strained. We know that our hospitals' resources are also strained. We know that the forensic science laboratory is strained with resources and cases that need DNA analysis. If all of these stakeholders are supposed to be employed to deal with both our cases, And at some point later in the future, we learn that I was lying. To understand that the financial implications, the manpower that is deployed to sort out and resolve all these cases, and only to find that one of these victims was not telling the truth. So you can imagine that now the police officers no longer know perhaps who to trust, because it looks legit until it is not.
Yeah.
The forensic nurses, the doctors that examine these victims that report these false accusations, use kids. You know, they also use their time, the psychologists that come on board. So there's a whole lot of stakeholders that are involved whenever anyone reports. And we must emphasize, sexual violation happens in both males and females. So after we've gone the whole 9 yards, only to realize that this was a false accusation.
Yeah.
So it greatly affects us. It diminishes, you know, the importance and the weight of real sexual violation cases. And the victims are then seen as if they're lying. Meanwhile, the true victims are not. So then you see the community now comes and says, but how sure are you?
Yeah.
It leaves that room for critique. And that criticism is now leveled against the real victims that needs protection. That's why you see a young woman would go into a police station, report a case, and says, I was out at a restaurant, I was minding my business, and I was accosted. But because there's been so many other incidents where young women go to restaurants, lure men into buying them whatever for the night, and then later on they cry foul, rape. So now even when a true victim comes and reports such a case, it's now compared to these other many false accusations.
And I mean, legal work, especially in criminal courts, it can be intense and really demanding. How do you take care of yourself outside of your work?
Well, I like hymns. Hosana ke mina sifila. When I'm too excited, I sing my hymns. Kore difila tša Sione le Hosana are my go-to. I do aerobics a lot. Back in my times, I used to compete internationally. So that's gym is one of my go-to places. I go there every day after work if I'm not going to practical legal training to teach. And then just being home with my people. I mean, my son does not think of me as an advocate or a legal person. All they want to know is what's for dinner. So when you get home, you get to park the work mom and just be a mom. So that space when you're home, when you're with your children, watching them play, so that tends to balance things out. And then you can just walk away from that intense environment and go home to something softer. You know, when you're having just a normal conversation with your husband, it's not about the sections, it's not about the law, it's not about, so it's just, you know, it's just me. I'm a woman, and that's it. That's all they want. They just want a girlfriend or and a mother. And just noodles.
Then you just get there, you relax.
And then I just get to detox from what I do.
And are there any personal codes or values that you carry with you?
Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot. I have a diary where I write all of those things, because on a bad day, you know, you want to go back and remind yourself. But one of the ones that I like often is there's no vacuum in the spiritual realm. God knows and is very intentional about what he does. When he removes, he replaces. It might not be in the manner that you would have liked, but as you open yourself to spiritual awakening, you'd quickly realize that, oh, something that happened 10 years ago, 10 years later, if you are able to connect the dots, you'd realize that God's perfect timing, in his infinite power, he has resolved something that was left hanging, you know, and history does not have any blank pages. We will go back to these moments, such as you and I today. Your children will watch you, and there isn't anything left to chance in God's dealings. He's so meticulous. Everything that he does, you can see the footprints, you can understand. If depending on what you believe, of course. I'm a Christian, so anything that has to do with biblical teachings and experiences, that's what I gravitate towards.
And for a young woman who's out there at home watching this episode who feels like her dreams are out of reach, what would you leave her with today?
Oh, they're not. They are not. I've read somewhere where it said, if your dreams do not scare you, I can't remember exactly who the author is, but they said if your dreams don't scare you enough, you must go back to sleep. While I don't believe in going back to sleep, but I just think it's the essence of that quote is that you must allow yourself to venture into enchanted territories. My mother was a teacher. And so and my grandmother was unemployed. She did what she could to afford my mother the chance. My mother did what she could to afford me the chance. But I mean, if you woke up my mother today from the graveyard and said, your daughter is said to be one of Africa's most influential top 100 female legal practitioners, I'm sure she would laugh and think, how did that happen? But it's their ambition, the drive, the tenacity, the diligence. There is nothing that substitutes hard work. Let's just get that clear. We can't dream, daydream. You must do the work. You must be willing to be corrected. You must learn to listen more than you talk. So when someone has more experience than you do, please take what you can from them. Obviously, you don't want to be like them. There's a difference between envy and admiration. You don't envy them per se, but you admire them. So the qualities that you admire, you take them, you work with your character, and stay true to yourself. I'm always a village girl, through and through. That has not changed, but it does not stop me from dreaming. So the fact that I'm sitting with you here, with all the accolades that I have, it's proof enough that it can happen. It can happen. I mean, we are living it so that the ones that are coming after us can see that it's possible.
And just one last question. For those people that haven't seen our Women's Day episode, what matters most to you and how do you protect what matters most to you? Because I know you have answered it, but then I just need to bring it up here again.
Yeah, family, the institution of family. I think a lot of things have gone wrong, or the trajectory of life has taken a different route because of we are failing to preserve the institution of family. When you deal with, in my line of duty, with young offenders, you realize that whether true or not, but what has become a pattern is that they will tell you, it's because my dad is not in my life. I feel rejected. Therefore, this is why I do crime. I'm not saying that is a true reason, but it keeps coming up. When you look at young children, teenagers, young offenders, female, why are they lured into crime? They also would tell you, my mom, my dad. So you realize that a lot of these started from, and I'm not saying fully functional families cannot produce some of the offenders that we meet, but I'm just merely saying from my own personal experience, I've realized that if we were to maintain the preservation of family, perhaps we can alienate a lot of these social ills, because discipline, love, protection, they all start from that institution. The lack thereof is what translates into something else that is undesirable. So my role in doing that is that if I keep the streets clean, so to say, of criminals and crime, if I help other stakeholders fight crime, then I get to protect the institution of family, your family, mine, and everyone's family.
And we're actually proud of the work that you do, Advocate.
Thank you so much.
We are. Well, it's been a pleasure having you here today. Thank you so much for being on What Matters Most with George Mahlakgane.
Thank you for having me. It's such a delightful experience, I must say.
Thank you so much to our viewers who are watching. Until next time, from me to you, your host, Lerato Mohlaka. Goodbye.